Welcome to Young and Finch, the podcast created by Korean millennials. Hey guys, welcome back to the Young and Finch podcast. My name is Brian. I'm here with Josh and Andrew.
Yes, sir.
And today we have the privilege of bringing in another guest. His name is Samuel. He is the owner of a clothing company called Kyopo. So let's just dive in. How's everyone doing?
What's up? It's good to be here. Thank you. That's a very sultry voice. You have like a sexy, deep voice. So I like it. But yeah, it's good to be here. I'm Sam. Don't call me Samuel. I think Samuel just sounds so formal. But yeah,
Okay.
just call me Sam and then.
Hello, Samuel.
But yeah, no, please don't say that. No Samuel.
I'm playing.
Duly noted.
It's all good.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Like I mentioned earlier, before the recording, we came across your page and what you guys are doing early on in our podcast journey, and immediately we're like, this is so on brand with what we're doing and what we're about. So I think you're doing something super special. Super stoked to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, man. No, it's good to be here. Again, I want to say thank you for having me. Young and Finch, great name. If you're from Toronto, you know Young and Finch. You're from North York. But these guys are posers. I'll tell you guys right now. The mans don't even live in Young and Finch right now. So I'll call that out on blast right now. Put them on blast right now. But yeah, it's good to be here, man. And I love supporting younger and there's Asian creatives. And so part of the reason why I started Kyopo was that. And so just kind of good to see more Asian creatives out there and putting their mark in society. So it's dope.
Yeah, I think we have a very specific niche, like Kyopo and us, where we're trying to target specifically Canadian Koreans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, I don't know about you, but for us, we try to target that niche because not a lot of people talk about it. I guess like to kind of go right into it, how did you decide to start Kyopo? Or actually, no. Let's kind of take a step back and can you kind of give us an introduction about yourself?
An introduction? All right, yeah. No, that's good too. I like diving in. Quick introduction. My name's Sam. I am in my mid-30s. I'm a little bit older. I work at a startup company. Kyopo's kind of more of like a side hustle that I run. And to go right into it, I'll just dive because that stuff's not kind of like not as interesting, but I've been running the brand for about 4 or 5 years, and I run it alone. And so just kind of doing it, just doing everything alone. And it's nothing big. It's really small, hitting a niche market. But kind of like what you said, Andrew, is kind of how I started. Was you see this representation of Korean gyopos in New York. You see it in California.
Yeah.
You even see it in Atlanta. But in Atlanta, Korean population, big population by the way, but you don't see it in Toronto. And It was this weird thing about me, like when I thought about it, I was like, how come there's no one stepping up to doing and representing Korean Canadians in a way that, is supporting one another versus competition? Because all I know about was like restaurant competition, competition between churches and stuff like that. That's all I knew about. But there wasn't this kind of solidarity between like supporting one another, and there wasn't that kind of like K-Town California, K-Town New York City, but K-Town Toronto, like what is like it's almost competing. Do you mean Christie or Young and Finch? It's like it's already that kind of mindset that's there, and so that's kind of the beginning stages of why I started Kyopo, was just to be a voice of that in Toronto for Canadians, and that's how it originally started.
Yeah, and Toronto's getting big too, so I think not only you, but we also got into it at a good time.
Yeah, I mean, we have the third largest Korean population in North America, outside of like California and New York, I believe, and I think we're on par with around Atlanta. And so, it's crazy to me that that the representation that we have for Korean Canadians it's not that high.
Yeah.
Kudos to Kim's Convenience, though. Put us on the map.
Hey, no, for real.
Yeah. But whether you like the show or not, I can't hate on it because it put us on the map, right? And so it's pretty dope that we have that. But that's why kind of how it started. And my first original shirt idea was to put the Korean flag and the Canadian flag together. And I just went to a random shop and got a friend to do the design for me and just kind of like put it on, and then I sold it through Facebook.
Damn.
And it just kind of, that was the first thing, and then just kind of went from there.
That's hilarious because when we were thinking about our logos, that was one of our concept ideas as well.
Yeah. I think, but you know what? I'll tell you, and this is just like advice from like outside. Like, I think what you're doing right now with just focusing on just Canada and Toronto, or like Canada and Korea, like, you know, I think it's good, but I would prefer you guys to think bigger than that. And your long term would be bigger than that, other than just
Exactly.
like, putting to that part.
Yeah, I think for us specifically, since we are Canadian Koreans, right? That's like our root point of view. But like when we kind of stem out, we want to target like Korean Americans, like Korean.
That's dope.
You know, like you know what I mean? Like kind of branch out.
Because Kyopo's, hey, that's the one thing is we're worldwide. We can relate to one another. If you're a Kyopo, you know what I mean? Like, even if you're a German Kyopo, Australian Kyopos, I have people buying Kyopo in Australia.
Yeah.
Hey.
No idea how they got it. Shipping costs like a buttload for them. Like, they're paying $30 for shipping, and I'm like, dang. And Canadian, but like, still, like, it's crazy to me. But like, if you meet another Kyopo, and you have the understanding of Korean culture and Canadian culture or North American culture or whatever culture you're from, you have that idea of like, knowing how to mix, and that same experience that you can share with one another. And so there's a really special bond with Kyopos, and it's there. It's there.
Sorry, just to kind of clarify to our audience what Kyopo means. Basically, Kyopo is someone that was either born in like a foreign country, like foreign as in not Korea, or grew up there. So
so born in or immigrated. So technically, people that are immigrated, they are technically quote unquote Kyopos, although people that are immigrated but they're still fluent in Korean will not consider themselves Kyopo. And I can go into why I chose the name of that Kyopo. I don't know if you guys want me to dive into it now or later. But
let's do it.
Definitely.
The reason why I chose the word Kyopo is because I taught English in Korea for a bit, and I was with some other Kyopos, and we were at a samgyeopsal, like a barbecue place, Korean barbecue spot, and we were eating, but we're talking in English. And then this drunk Korean guy, this older guy, came up to me and said, like, like, why are you guys talking in English? You guys are Korean. And then he said Kyopo in a very negative way. 이 Kyopo 새끼들. And so the older generation and older Korean people had this negative views of Kyopo. You've abandoned your country. And long ago, it wasn't even called Kyopo. It's called Dongpo. Because it's because people were known to leave and just kind of abandon Korea. Like, why do you have to have a better life? You can have it here, but like, why do it in Korea? And so, even sometimes when you watch Korean variety shows, they have this image of Kyopos, and it's loud, obnoxious, in your face, kind of like Jesse, right?
Yeah.
Which is, again, kind of true, but Jesse, even for Kyopos, is obnoxious. But anyway, so, but like, on the real though, it's like, even like the name now, the reason why I did it was so I can tell Korean people, look, I am a Kyopo, but I'm so proud to be Korean. And it's this weird, proud feeling that I have to be Korean, but I'm so proud to be Korean, and I want you guys to know that. It doesn't make me less Korean than you because I wasn't born there and I can't speak your language fluently. But I want you to know that I truly love being Korean. Most of the time.
Let's see not most of the time.
Yeah, I don't know. We get that's another episode, but
True.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's actually a good topic.
But for me, most of the time, and I really wanted to let Korean people know and put a stand on it, like taking something negative and turning it into positive, and wanting people to know like that's what Kyopo is.
I think it's interesting because I think like in previous generations, how you were as a Kyopo then is so different from now because Korean culture has become so much more globalized, right? Like, I think in like the 90s and the 80s, when you were like a second gen high school kid then, like, you were kind of outcasted, so you were kind of forced to assimilate and to kind of leave your culture behind a little bit, which is why like the second gens before us are like a lot more whitewashed and a lot more Canadian or American than a lot of second gens now, right?
For sure. Yo, I grew up in St. Catharines, all right? So I'm
What?
a St. Catharines boy, yeah. I'm a small city boy. I grew up in St. Catharines. Yo, and I played ball. Like, I was a captain of my basketball team. Yeah, everything. You know, like, on the name of the jerseys on the back. So we had these warm-up jerseys. And this is true story. We had warm-up jerseys and everything, and everyone put their last name down. And I put my last name down. My team changed it to Korea. Like they just didn't even want to put my last name down because like I was like they called me Korea. That's I walked down and they would yell, "Yo, Korea!" and I know they're talking to me, but it's not racist per se. You know, it's kind of just weird. It's kind of weird.
Wait, the teacher didn't have anything to say about that?
Growing up, I'm telling you, it's different. Again, it's different. And
Yeah,
it's
this
not
was like sorry, yeah.
This is early. Yeah,
Yeah,
take it easy, Andrew. You don't want to say how. Andrew, no, I'm just kidding. But it's crazy that I was like Korea back in the day. Like that's what it was. Like this is when Rush Hour 1 was coming out.
Right,
like you know, like and like kind of like, oh yo, Jackie Chan's like, dang, take it easy. I like the movie too. Like Rumble in the Bronx. Like when I was in elementary school. So like, it's crazy because you're right, Josh. Like I had to explain to people what kimchi was.
Yeah.
People were like, now in Korean barbecue, and everyone's like, yo, Korean barbecue is like, all right, take it easy. Like, like, and I see the younger kids like, oh, stop fantasizing about Korean men. Like, we're people too. And I'm like, are you kidding me? When I was growing up, I wanted a girl to look at me because I'm Korean. Like, you're complaining about that now? It's like the older generation, that one's just kind of like confused on that. But anyways.
It's like it was such a different time. Like I remember even when I was in grade school, like people would be like, where are you from? And I'd be like, Korea. They're like, where is that? Like they just didn't know about Korea like at all, right?
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
It's insane. It's insane. But now it's like the whole K-pop fear, everything.
Yeah.
Which is also part of the reason why I didn't want to put all my designs as just a Korean flag or something, because I didn't want to just capitalize on the idea of like, I'm Korean, so I'm gonna put a Korean flag on something and it'll sell.
Yeah.
And I did that with my first shirt, but then I realized that I was like, ooh, that's not what I want to be. Like, I don't want to capitalize on just that. And the whole idea of Kyopo wasn't about even making money. It was just like a side project, just because like to get people to understand truly what a Kyopo is and how like I said, how proud I am to be Kyopo. But yeah, you're right, man. It's total different generations of like what the Korean kids now growing up are like versus like what I had to deal with or what we had to deal with, right? So
Yeah.
So do you remember the moment when you kind of switched gears and you started to embrace more of your Koreanness? Like I think I read in your blogs that you hated being Korean. You used to bring like sandwiches with ham so that people won't ask, what are you eating for lunch or whatever.
I could relate to that. I think we could all relate to it.
I think we could all relate to it. So is there like, do you remember maybe like an experience or maybe it's like a thought that you had to yourself? It's like, oh, I'm gonna embrace my Korean, and just kind of stand up.
Yeah, and so I think that's a good question. That's a really good question. I hated it in school being Korean because I was so different. And again, not to get religious and stuff like this, but I grew up in the church too. And so I understand what that's like. But growing up in the Korean church, I understood like being Korean, there was this special bond that was there, like with your friends growing up and seeing that. When I really realized how and when I enjoyed being Korean was probably in university. When I was surrounded by other Koreans, I was on my own. I wasn't with my parents. I went to McMaster University. Shout out to...
Oh, say word.
I don't care. I don't care about McMaster University. I always say like, shout out to McMaster University. Yeah. I could care less about McMaster.
I'm from Mac too, so
you're from Mac? Oh, yeah. Shout out to Mac. Yeah. Shout out to Bates, to Kai's, to
the Brandon.
To Quarters. No, anyways. But yeah, like, it was during university where I kind of met up with other Koreans and I realized, oh, interesting. This is what it really means to be Korean, like other people have the same story as I do. Not as severe because I did grow up in a very small city where there weren't that many Koreans, but I always did like being Korean, but in the main sphere of life, like when in school and all these different things, friends, it was never that. And that's where kind of like where my church friends, they all felt that. So when we went to like church again, like that small impact of a small community, you really see a tightness that can happen there. And so I did hate being Korean when I was younger. Not hate. I disliked it. In the main sphere of things of school. Like, you know, not being able to like bring kimchi, me yelling to my mom, like, stop packing me kimchi, like, kids are making fun of me. I can't do it. And so, she started making me sandwiches and stuff like that. So
You probably had a culture shock when you went to university then, eh?
yeah, it was a little bit of a culture shock. I was like, dang, there's a lot of Koreans here. And like, I remember like, you know, I was like, oh shoot. But it wasn't like that bad. And again, people listening to this might think I'm overreacting. Like, again, this is years ago where, like, you know, MSN was just starting to come up. And, like, you know, like, I had a flip phone and limited text messages in university. You know, like, I had to tap 3 times to get that S, or like, you know, like, so like, I think it's different things like that where it was a little bit of a culture shock. When I went to Toronto, I was like, wow, there's other like Koreans that like love hip hop, that love ball, that do this, versus for me growing up, it was like, it wasn't as prevalent. It wasn't like that much. So.
Bro, you just explained all Kyopo.
Likes
hip hop and plays basketball.
It's what it happened. Like, you know, you talk to any non-Koreans, they'll come up to you like, oh, yo, you remind me of my friend. It's like, oh, cool. Like, you know, what's your friend like? Oh, he loves basketball and he like loves hip hop. You're like, all right, dog, that's all of us. Like, I don't think you understand. There's a lot of people that are like that, and like, you know, they're just like, all right, cool. Like, you know, we get it. But yeah, university is where I started to love being Korean. Understanding it a little bit more. And then the older I got, you start to realize, oh, dang, like, I didn't realize how Korean I am. And funny thing is that Kyopos tend to be more Korean than Korean people. And what I mean by this is because our parents try to hold on to the Korean culture so much more harder because that's just what it is. And it's like the conservative mindset is pretty strong.
Yeah, I agree.
Versus in Korea, it's kind of open. You're not holding on to culture because that is culture. You're in Korean, right? So a lot of Kyopo men, women, tend to have very conservative. Not all the time, and there's other times like there's the rebels out there and stuff like you know, whatever. You'll be surprised to see like how Korean we still are as Kyopos.
I agree with that.
And it's pretty crazy.
I agree because I think of myself like that. Because I came here when I was really young, but I still withhold like a lot of like the conservatism. I don't know if that's a word, but so I agree.
Yeah, it's interesting that Kyopos, like, even with my friend groups, and I meet up with like my other like Korean friends. They just, to me, they're like, I'm like, dang, like they're like, why are you such a Korean ajushi? You're the Kyopo. I was like, but I heard it's because our parents tried to hold on to the culture a bit more versus, and then that imparts into us. And so, like, you know, I might be wrong, but
no, it's interesting though.
It's a point of view. You know what I'm saying?
Were you born here?
Yeah,
I
was
you
born
a second
here.
Gen?
Yeah, second gen, born here. Born in Toronto, raised in St. Catharines, and then Hamilton, and then Toronto.
Back to Toronto, yeah. How was the because I feel like, you know, like we mentioned, like even like 10 years ago, growing up in Canada as a Korean is probably a completely different experience than it is now. Like, what was that like with like the, you know, the second gens, the Kyopos versus like the FOBs and like the Korean immigrated international students? Because I've heard stories from before where like older Hyungs would tell me like, yeah, like there would be like beef or like you guys just wouldn't click.
Always beef, man. It's funny when you're talking about that, John. Like, I would remember like times in church, like your church, like we're a church, right? In St. Catharines, there's no KM and EM in St. Catharines.
Oh,
we just have our youth group there. One side, all the Kyopos. Another side, all the Koreans.
Yeah.
And like, you know, so fun. And it was just like that. And there was always beef. Something happening. Something talking. Kyopos talking their smack. Like, oh, I hate it when they just do this. And them talking their smack. Like, oh, michin. Oh, like, you know, that. And it was just there. It was there. And no word of a lie. In my church, I dated a brand new UX thing. So I was that bridge. I was trying to be that bridge. You know what I'm saying? And so like this girl, like straight from Korea, like straight, like 2 weeks in, she comes sing out, and I'm like, oh, I like you, and it's my first love. It's like my first girlfriend too, and I was that bridge in that. But there was always beef like that, and and that continued all the way to like. That continued. It's probably still there. There's probably still like a lot of things like, you know, like even my friends are a little bit older, like even to me a little bit more older youngs, like they just can't really understand that Korean culture, the Korean people. And so part of what I like to do is be that gap between the Koreans and second gens, and that's part of the reason why I don't say fob. Because I know what it's like because fob can be seen as a negative term too, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, they're so fobby.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because I hated when people said, "Oh, you're such a Kyopo," and it just comes off kind of negative. So it's like, why am I putting that onto them? Like, I can't expect them to like respect me as a Kyopo if I call them fobs. And so, again, not saying that you're wrong to saying fob or anything like that. It's just for me personally, like I took that out of my vocabulary because it's like I want them to understand, like, you know, it's great that you're Korean and you came to Canada and like, kind of like this kind of like respect. It was like an enlightenment like kind of thing, but myself.
For sure.
But yeah, that's kind of my goal in that. But you're right, there was a lot of beef, a lot of fights, a lot of sheep, you know, just a lot of like, you know, X, and a lot of this stupid mull, you know, just kind of like mixed together. But now it's good to see them all grab a soldier together and like, you know.
So I have a question for you. Yeah. Would you consider yourself more of like because you know in the Kyopo like space, there's like Kyopos that are more Korean, Kyopos that are more like North American. Like, what would you consider yourself in?
Dang, that's a good question, man. Wow, you guys are hitting good questions. I would say I'm more second gen. I'm more like non-Korean in the sense of language.
Right.
But I think my thinking mentality is I am more Korean per se than the way I operate daily in life. So I don't know if that really answers it, but I would say if you're thinking about my thinking and the mentality of things, I do think I am a little bit more Korean.
Interesting.
In that. But and for me, what I tend to do now, and after university, while I started working, I made a conscious effort to try to take the best things of both cultures and try to impart that into my, like, to take that what I can, and so to use that as an advantage of like saying like, oh, I understand what it means to grind it out as a Korean, to have that discipline to like work day and night, whatnot, and take that as a good thing. But then I also know the negative parts of like Korean culture where it's like judgment and stuff like that. So I don't want to be someone that wants to. I try to take that part out, and then I'll input like just like the North American side of things. Like everyone has a story, everyone has like, you know, we gotta embrace a lot of different things. You know? And then but there's other times where I'm like, we can't embrace everything. Not to get to anything, but like, like, you know, like it's just like, well, anyways, cancel. Anyway,
shine light on the positives, basically.
You know. Gotcha. But that's kind of what I tend to try to do. So I try to be a mix. And is it a perfect mix? Of course not. But it's the goal to get. It's the beauty of being a Kyopo is that you got all these different.
Exactly.
You got these cultures that you can like kind of input and recreate something, and that's why kind of the slogan was hashtag I am Kyopo, where it's like kind of like, am I Korean? Am I American or Canadian? No, but I'm in this spot where like not many people understand, but we can create this niche understanding and become the best like superhumans that we can be. Like for sure. In a way, superhumans is a stupid way to put it, but
No, we touched on this too in one of our previous episodes. Early on, it was like growing up in Canada as Koreans, and like you hit it right on the nail. It's like we have the opportunity to grow up with both cultures sort of intertwined, and so we're able to really kind of weigh out, you know, like you said, pros and cons of both, right? And so like sort of pick and choose, but also kind of accept both cultures and see how the synergy can work. No, that's totally true.
I hope it, and I hope that's what I can impart to like the younger generation too.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's kind of like what my goal is to kind of like,
it's definitely easier though because of like globalization we just talked about. So than before. Like I remember when I used to play hockey when I was a kid, and then I was like low key ashamed of like Lee on my back because my last name's Lee, and anyone you see, it's like, oh, this guy's an Asian. Like I was the only Asian dude, like full of white people. Yeah. Like see my mom have no friends because she can't speak English with like all the other hockey moms. It was kind of tough. Yeah. So yeah.
Yo, man, it brings me back. I'm telling you, like I would tell my parents, like I played varsity level of basketball, volleyball, like athlete of the year potential. There's one guy that beat me, so I didn't get it. All right, I didn't get it.
Runner up, baby.
Runner up. But like, and then like I thought, like I told my parents never to come to my games.
Oh.
Because I was embarrassed.
Yeah. I understand.
You know what I mean?
I understand.
Yeah. Oh shit.
It hurts. It hurts.
Yeah.
I told my parents to never come to a game, and then I I might start crying. Older I get, it's emotional, but like I can't imagine how much pain that put my parents through when I said, "Don't come to my games," because I'm like, and they know it's because I'm embarrassed of you. Yeah. That hurts, right? Like 약간 like we gotta have a soldier and play some ballads in the background and just like, 엄마 미안해. And then like I'll say sorry to my mom right now. I'll call her and then she'll like chanso리 me. Like I'm like, okay, I'm done. Those feelings are gone. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean with that. Like it's just kind of, it's a different life.
I think we all have that kind of experience when we're younger, and you know, we just don't have as much resources available to us that we have now. And you just kind of feel like an outsider in those kind of environments. But I think for you, Sam, like as you grow older and you have a lot more wisdom, and you just kind of look back and you just kind of see it as experience and just kind of tools that you can use in your life, and in, you know, whoever you meet, you know, whether it be Korean or Western people, like you can take what you learn from each culture and kind of use that as your advantage and things like that. But yeah, I think it comes with age and wisdom and just kind of understanding who you are and just kind of accepting the situation, I guess.
Yeah, for sure, man. This is getting deep, guys. I wasn't expecting this, but yeah, I agree, man. I think the older I get, I realize like, dang, I really don't know much, and I really don't, like, you start seeing. And you hear these cliche statements, like, you know, like, you're going through that and you're going to learn from it and you're going to get better. But, like, it's so true, and sometimes, like, where you're just like, man, I learned from that and I'm, like, improving from it. And, like, and I get knocked down and I'll come back and, like, you take your experience and there's no such thing as a bad experience. I hate when people say that.
Exactly,
It's bad in the moment. It's bad in the moment.
Yeah.
But if you can take it and you can learn from it, then it's a good experience.
I agree.
Right? So, I hate cliche statements. I hate it, but they're cliche for a reason.
You know what's funny? Like, you know how people that are older, like hyungs, that kind of tell you like for example, right? If you're in first year, they tell you to like study and like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, and then you don't listen as a kid. But when you grow older, you tell younger people that same thing that you heard, right? So nowadays, when I tell people that are younger about like advice or whatever, like I go like, I know this may sound cliche, and you're gonna probably learn when you grow up, but do this and this and this. Just to give them a little preface.
My biggest advice to kids going to university, like, hey, just first year university, just don't mess it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, just don't mess it up. And like legit, I tell kids is like, first year university, don't date. And the reason why I tell them not to date is because you don't know anything. And if your reputation already is you already dated 1-2 friends and then they're friends with everyone else, you can't date any of the friends. So just hold off. Be the smart one. Hold off. Wait a little bit longer, and then like even like the next year, if there's a pretty girl, but your ex-girlfriend is close to that 동생, you can't date her now. Like, you know? But like I tell them, hold it off, wait, because like the older you get,
sounds like from experience here, Sam.
Man, speaking from experience right
now. It is an experience, okay? It is a straight up experience. So we're not gonna go into that, but like, it was an experience where like
that's hilarious.
One of my ex-girlfriends is like well known in Toronto and like connected with everybody. So then you're just like, shoot, like, you know.
But Toronto's like that in general. Like you meet someone, and there's always at least one mutual, especially if they grew up in Toronto.
Yeah. Definitely.
Anyways, not a dating podcast or anything like that, but that's just kind of some of the advice that I give.
Got a little bit of everything for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Kind of bringing it back to Kyopo. When did you know Kyopo became what you intended it to be? Like, was there a moment where you're like this was it? Because for the podcast, I think for me personally, when some of our listeners reach out and tell us some really personal story or experience that they went through, we've done something that has given them the confidence to confide in us, even though we're just three random Korean Canadian guys shooting the shit once a week.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was kind of like, okay, I think we're onto something. So did you have like that kind of similar moment where you're like, boom, we're in?
Yeah, man. Like all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. People message me a lot, DM me and just say, I really appreciate what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's like,
it's powerful.
what am I doing? I'm making clothes. Like, what am I doing? But a lot of the reasons why I do I do a lot of Instagram lives, and I did that before, and was because there needs to be a story behind what you're doing and who you are. And one thing I believe is that everyone has a story. And for Kyopos, a lot of the time is we all have the similar story, so why don't we talk about it? The immigrant story, and this is kind of separate, but like I think the long-term goal for you guys, and not to be like a Gary Vee or anything like that, but is not even just focusing on just the Korean part of it, but it's like the immigrant story is so similar that everybody can understand what it feels like to be an outsider. Everyone understands what it feels like not to fit in. And so what is that story, and how can we listen to it, and how can we operate in that? And so kind of those moments, like you said, like people messaging. Well, first moment was clothes selling out. I was like, what? Why is this selling out? Like, it's like, when I first started, it was like shoddy quality. I was like, why is this selling out? Y'all don't even know what you guys are buying. Like, like.
It's like Fruit of the Loom.
Yeah, like, I was like, oh, shoot. Like, and I was like, okay, it's like shoddy quality. But then I was like, okay, realize quality matters. And then like this kind of stuff. And then I got my manufacturers and tried all this stuff. But it's interesting because the moment was, sure, selling out was one of them. I would say another one of them is getting these messages and saying, what you're doing is impacting me. A lot of adoptees saying, I'm proud to be Korean now. Oh, gosh, that hits my heart. You know what I'm saying? Like you see a lot of like even second gens being like, you've made me appreciate Korean culture a bit more. Oh, man, that's beautiful. Like, like even if it's for a temporary moment, just to hear that, to understand that, and to be able to impart that kind of knowledge and passion for it. And I think later on, one of my goals is like kind of figuring out how I can mend, and this is not to get super deep, but how to mend relationships with parents and kids, and understanding that kind of like the idea of this is where they came from. This is what they're meaning by these words. And you can't change them. We can't. They've lived 60 years more than us. So why are you expecting to change them? And why are you expecting that your train of thought is right? Why can't they be right? Why do we? And so just little things like that. That's my long-term goal. As I'm getting older, I'm like, I can't always create streetwear. Like, I'm not gonna be a 60-year-old being like, okay, here's my streetwear clothing line. Like, kids are gonna be like, what's this dumbass doing right here talking about this? But long-term goal is that. And so I know I made it when it was like, not made it, but I know something was here when you realize it's more than just clothing. It's more than just a podcast. You're speaking to people that are listening to something on a deeper level.
That's beautiful, man. Actually,
no, that parent thing that you said, man, that shit hits.
And we all experience it. We know, know, right? We know what it's like. Like even me, like I'll watch a Korean movie and it's like about parents, and I start tearing up because, like whatever. But then like I call my mom, and then she starts like translating me like, oh, you got fat. I was like, peace out, F you. And like that moment lasts for a second, right? And we're all in that, but it's there. It's part of being a Kyopo. It's part of being a Kyopo. It's part of being
sure.
Shout out to all the Korean moms.
Shout out to all the Korean moms, man. Man.
And I'm sure our parents had it way worse than us, when they first came to Canada. And I know for a fact my dad, like, he's been through a lot. So,
it's like respect. Now that we get older, I think we try to, do little things for our parents. For me, I did.
Give back.
Exactly. I try to, like, for their birthdays, I try to buy them, like, a really nice dinner or something like that. So.
Yeah, that's the best, man. That's the best.
Yeah, I think I have to. So yeah, I have to buy my parents a TV. So it gets more and more. It's like I was like, and it's like not just a regular TV. It's like, oh yeah, we want this. And like their living rooms, their couch and their wall is pretty far. So like, yeah, we want. I want this 75-inch Samsung. I was like, whoa, okay.
The one that like
right
comes
when
out of the
Black-
wall.
Yeah, right when Black Friday's coming along, great timing asking for this. Like, I was like, get the F out of here. But it's like I think about it, I'm like, oh man, I should.
Yeah, it's like the least we can do, right?
Yeah.
It's in recording too, so we got you.
Yeah, it's in recording. Yeah. I can edit whatever we want, right? Like,
Caught in 4K.
Hey, I remember the email you said if we can post edit things.
It's like I'll edit it so that it says I'll buy you a TV tomorrow. No, I'm
They
saying.
called me the other day. Asking for like when is it coming. I said, "Hold up, just wait." Take it easy, man.
Oh,
Take it
man.
easy.
Have you done any collabs with Kyopo? Or if you haven't, like, are there any collaborators in the horizon? Artists, designers, brands,
No, like,
athletes, you know?
Yeah, right. I wish, man. Like, here's the thing, and I run it on the side, so
Yeah.
like, it's always a side hustle for me, and it's really hard. Like, running a small business with clothing manufacturers. So I had like 2 manufacturers, 3, one in Korea, 2 in China. But then because of COVID, it is so expensive to
Right.
to have this being shipped.
Yeah.
And so as things are happening in that kind of way, it's getting hard. And so I'm actually, like, to tell you guys the truth, like, I'm taking a little, not a break, but like a break from Kyopo only because I don't know how to maintain this at a price point where the Kyopo audience will still want to buy it.
Right.
Because it's not even about me making money. It's about like the amount of work that I'm putting into it. Is it worth my health? Is it worth like the stress and stuff like that
Yeah, of
with all
course.
the shipping and stuff like that, right? And so it's made it harder with that. My end goal, because I'm a huge sneakerhead. I love sneakers. I used to run a sneaker channel on YouTube.
Oh.
what?
Like, got it to 20,000 subscribers, and then
Wow.
like it cut out from there. But I love sneakers. So like a goal was to like create like a New Balance, and I love New Balance. A New Balance and Kyopo collab was like the end goal of like kind of like
shit.
not even Nike. Screw Nike, even though I got like the Nike Dunks here. I got all my Korean sneakers here. But screw Nike. I would want to do like the end goal would have been a collab with
New Balance.
New Balance.
with New Balance. And also my goal too was to, and this isn't even for like influencer marketing or anything like that. It was to send some gear to all the Kyopos in the industry. Just to say like, hey, remember, you don't even have to wear it. You don't even have to advertise it.
Yeah.
Remember you're a Kyopo. And be
Yeah.
proud that you're a Kyopo.
Right.
I never got around doing that because like I was just like, are they really gonna open it? Is this gonna even make an impact and stuff? Like, you just think that. But
Yeah.
collaborations I would love to do. Yeah, it's that. Love what Jay Park is doing. Love what
Yeah.
Jay Park represents.
Right.
From one time cussing out Korea in an old tweet or like old kind of whatever it was,
Yeah.
being banned from Korea.
Right.
Oh,
going to
shit. I
PM.
forgot about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, from being from 2 p.m. like being a Kyopo, like being that rep. So he was that image, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's that image, and like that. Remember, that's what Koreans think sometimes when they see Kyopos is
Right.
like a J Park, but I mean not as handsome and sexy, but like But then he now went back there, started AOMG, got working with Jay-Z with Rockefeller, like you know what I'm saying? Like that's really impressive, and that's kind of like Jay Park would be the ultimate collab because that's a Kyopo doing it,
Right.
and he's
Yeah.
doing it. He's doing it in a way that's loud and proud, and he's not ashamed of who he is and what he's doing. So.
Yeah.
Damn, that New Balance collab would be sick though.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Just a simple New
I
Balance.
can
collab.
see it. I can see
Yeah,
it.
just
can
like
see it.
little hints of it, and Koreans love New Balance.
Yeah.
Like don't
Yeah.
get me like New Balance is
Facts.
like people talk about New Balance being a wave here. New Balance has been a wave in Korea for a long
Oh,
time.
yeah.
So
Oh,
and so it's a little different, but man, a New Balance sneaker collab would be insane. Insane.
Well, we'll make sure to tag New Balance on their Instagram post.
Everyone can spam New Balance in
Yeah.
the DMs
Yep.
to
You know what's-
get
You
the
know what's
collabo
so
going.
funny though is that I'm friends with the whole, not the wholesaler, so the middleman of New Balance Canada, And so like they're like the buyers and the sellers and that kind of stuff, but like they have their shop and everything. So I have a plug to New Balance and whatever. And if Kyopo got big enough, I could have done it because they ran collabs with Capsule. They ran collabs with like different kind of smaller Canadian brands.
Yeah.
If I was able to grow it, oh man, it was almost attainable in my mind, and then I realized it's not attainable in the near future. It's pretty hard.
Especially if you're doing it by yourself too. Like that's tough.
Yeah. And working at a startup and like having startup hours and like doing that.
Yeah.
And I was legit not sleeping because I was talking to my manufacturer from like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Jeez.
Just messaging back and forth, like doing that. And that's after a full days of like 10-hour work,
yeah,
right?
That's tough.
10, 12-hour work day, right?
Yeah.
So so when people like when like Kyopo's so dear to my heart. So like when someone buys some stuff or whatever, it's like, dang man, you spent your hard-earned money on that. Like thank you so much.
Yeah.
And, like, I try like my best to understand that. Here's also a side point that I'll completely say that I hope you guys don't experience is it's weird how Canadian Koreans, and I've said it before, they don't support one another as much. It's weird how we almost have to like, it's like almost like embarrassing sometimes to like support one another in their endeavors. So like for instance, like with your podcast, I would hope that all your friends are reposting this is dope, like whatever, like that kind of support that would be there. It happens in the States. But for some reason, there's this kind of like, I'm too cool to support this out loud. I'm too cool to support this like here. And I've experienced that so much with Kyopo. Whereas like my friends were like, yo, it's kind of cool with what you're doing. And I'm thinking, will you ever support it? They wouldn't. And it's not because they don't like the designs or whatever. It's because it's like this weird thing of supporting your friends in something like this. In clothing or in the media or these types of things. Like podcasts or anything like that. And I don't know. For me, that's just what I experienced. But I really hope that that's not what you guys experience in that. And it's this weird thing. It's weird.
Yeah, I agree with you a little bit because I could see where in America it's more like the States is more of like an outgoing culture, right? In generalities. But I feel like Canada is like the little brother of the United States where you're standing in the back. And that kind of influences what you just said, right? In my opinion, I'm not sure. I might be wrong.
It's like, are you cool enough for me to support?
Yeah.
Is your clothes good enough for me to support? And it's not about just supporting the cause or the image of it. It's like, are you cool enough or is the clothes good enough for me to support you and to display that?
Right.
And it's just kind of this weird thing. It's this weird thing that's happening in Toronto, in Vancouver. And it's kind of why I realize and why I believe why the Korean community in Canada hasn't stepped up nowhere near as much as the States. Like, think about any Korean artists in local artists right now, like singing or like musical.
Yeah.
I can't think of many, but I know that there's a lot probably pursuing it, but we just don't really support it as much the way that we need to as a community. And it's like almost kind of embarrassing in that way. And that's kind of why I say we're more Korean in the sense of we're only like we're very image conscious. We're very still like you know, kind of this kind of like side thing and like oh, does it fit who I am? Like, you know, and you know,
going back to the judgmental thing too.
Going back to the judgmental thing, being fear of being judged. And I really hope that people will be able to support your podcast simply because, you know, one, obviously, hopefully the content is good, but even if the content isn't good, it's like you're doing something and you're trying to do something, so let me support you. And if it's not going against like moral beliefs or you're not telling people or whatever, like that's great. Like, you know, but it's seeing Asian people support one another is great. Although I do have something else to say about this. Is like recently there was like that Boston mayor.
I saw that.
Who got like the Asian Boston mayor that like first person of color being elected in Boston, right? And it's this Asian woman. Great, right? I messaged some of my American friends that said, "Oh, they're supporting her." I was like, "Hey, what does she stand for?" They're like, "I don't know, but she's Asian." I was like, "Man, no, that's not right." Like, hang on a second. I was like, time out. That ain't right. Like, and so not just blindly supporting things. And I kind of like, that's kind of weird. Like, you're really that happy, but like they could be like the opposite party of you. Like, hang on a second. Like, wait a second. How really happy are you? Or are you just happy because it's a person of color and like that's the majority topic of things? Right. I would hope that Toronto would become a place where it's kind of like it's able to support one another. Not blindly, but not unashamed unashamedly, just to say,
Yeah.
like, look, I support this. Yo, Young and Finch Boys, I support it. There was these guys that I knew they ran a page called Soldier Boys, and I was like, or Soldier Opas. It was called Soldier Opas, and I know these guys, and they were like running a thing, and I was like, yo, just like, I was like, I don't know if I'm for it. I don't know what you guys stand for, but I'm for that you're trying something. And I was like, kudos to you guys for trying something. And so, like, I just like people that are trying to do something.
Right.
And I support it and being unashamed.
Respect.
Yeah, it's like one of those things. Even as a second gen Korean Canadian, you're like, you're wrestling with those things, right? Like wrestling with like, what will people think, and wrestling with like the self image and all that shit. You're like trying to. It's a constant battle, I think, for a lot of us.
It really is, and it's tough. I understand it, and it's tough, but you need people to take the brunt, like take a hit, in order for other people to do things.
Right.
And so what I'm hoping is, like, with Kyopo, with the brand, bringing it back to the brand, it's people might see me taking hits, people might see it, but I hope that it inspires someone later on to be like, keep doing what you're doing because they saw this happening. And it, as cliche and as cheesy as it is like, growing up, I never saw an Asian superhero.
Yeah.
Until Shang-Chi.
It's crazy to me. Until Shang-Chi. Until Shang-Chi. It's legit until Shang-Chi, like, where I was like, dang, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, but I'm too old, but it's like, I never thought I would see the day where that was happening.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it happened.
Yeah.
Although, people are like, oh yeah, like, we're so proud, but it's still typecast. Like, it's an Asian, type of thing. Like, I heard from a friend who said the perfect Asian superhero would have been Peter Parker, the nerd.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? The kind of like smart dude, and then like and then in typecast and living with the auntie and very family oriented and kind of like protective and like always wanted the cool girl to look at him, but like never got that. The perfect Asian superhero should have been freaking Spider-Man.
Peter Parker.
Can you imagine? Like,
that's what the guy said too. He's like, he wouldn't be called Peter Parker. His name would be called Peter Park. And you're like, yo, it's so true. Like, and then the how would you with great responsibility comes like with great power comes great. That's such like an obvious thing to say. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to make a lot of money. Do you know how much a lot of money will bring pain? You're like, oh, Ajashi, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to make a lot of money. Like, or like, it takes a lot of responsibility. But I think if there's any superhero that should have been an Asian person or Korean or whatever, it should have been.
Now that you say it, like, you're saying a lot of things that make me reflect on a lot of things that I haven't thought about. Like the Spider-Man thing, I never thought about an Asian. Like, it makes sense though, like how you just draw out the logic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
It's there. Why not?
Yeah. Why not?
But that's why Shang-Chi was like, it's great because, great, an all Asian cast, but for an Asian movie. But like the next step would be like having an Asian lead in a non-Asian movie.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi was Asia written all over it, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I
like,
agree.
people are like, oh, Mulan, great, but that's still an Asian movie.
Yeah, right.
Like, we're making waves in that way. But anyways, maybe that's gonna happen before I die. Peter Parker might happen or something like that.
hey man,
It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. We got Squid Games and all these things coming up.
Squid Game, yeah, exactly.
But we are very underrated in that aspect in terms of like acting, and I'm sure a lot of Asian people get ignored in Hollywood, and it's not right, but
it's not right.
It's getting better.
Yeah,
it's getting better. There's more recognition happening.
Yeah.
Hey man, some of these Korean actors are way better than American actors. Not even close.
Yeah, and also like people are
big facts.
defending. Like I saw this video recently about Lee Jung-jae, the main character from Squid Games, where an American reporter was like, "How does it feel to go outside your home and feel recognized?" But it's like this dude's been famous for like 20 years in Korea, right?
Yeah.
And then
This guy's like a legend.
yeah, it's a legend. It's only in the States, and he was very humble about it. He was like, "Yeah, in the States, like he said it in the States.
Yeah.
It's cool to see that people recognize." But like people in the comments were like, "Who is this freaking reporter? Like doesn't know shit.
Yeah.
Like so
Yeah.
ignorant."
Yeah.
Like people are calling out now more so than I think before about ignorance towards Asians, right? Or like non-Americans, non-North Americans. So
People of color,
yeah. So
I mean, I'm for it too. I'm for that too. But sometimes you're like, you gotta give her a break. She don't know.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
like you just gotta understand. She's not intentionally being mean.
Right.
Like, you
But it's
know?
also kind of like her job, you know what I mean? Like as a
Yeah.
reporter, as someone who's
Research.
investigating, doing
Yeah.
a piece, like come on, you should do your due
You
diligence.
should do your
That's
due
like,
diligence. Like this
Yeah.
person's famous and kind
Yeah.
of things like that. There is that kind of expectation. I don't know. For me, it's like a lot of times now it's like about intention with a lot of these
Yeah.
things. Like if someone says something to me and I feel like it's racist, I'm like it could be borderline racist, and then you have to look at. Okay, what was their intention in saying that?
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, or like, you know, people like when I used to like, when I was younger, I thought about it, like, you know, I smoked a lot of weed when I was younger, right? And I was like, you know, they're like, oh, I can't see your eyes. They're like, oh, dog, what do you mean by that? Like, you know, you gotta,
Hold on.
Like, what's your intentions into saying that right now, man? Like,
tough.
you're confusing me. Oh, like, come
Okay,
on.
let's
Like,
not
what do you-
pretend like all of us have not heard that. Okay.
Yeah, right? Like, I can't see your eyes. Like, oh, hey, when you smile, can you see? It's like,
Yeah.
dog, that's messed up. But I know what you're trying to say, but like,
Yeah.
that's messed up. But for me, a lot of it has to go with intentions now. Because
Yeah.
ignorance and expectations of people, you can't expect
Right.
people to know. You can't expect them to do things like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, like that kind
Yeah.
of stuff,
I think a good benchmark is like to determine if it's blissfully ignorant or willfully ignorant, right? So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's true. Again, people want to complain about everything.
Yeah.
People just want to do this. Like everyone, like it's like everyone says like freedom of speech. Like everyone has freedom of speech, but sometimes you shouldn't use it. Like you know, sometimes you shut up.
Yeah.
That's just an old Ajushi. That's the old Ajushi mindset coming in my mind. Right? You know what I'm saying? That's me being an old Ajushi, and I understand it. But anyways, yeah, I can go on for hours. It's
Yeah.
not good.
People always take things to the extremes. I feel like
Yeah.
human tendencies just do that.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
plus
Yeah.
cancel culture is like really strong these days. So
Yeah.
like especially
It's
that too.
it's finding that balance, right? Sometimes you need to cancel. Sometimes you need to go up and be like, what the hell's going on? But
Yeah.
you know, it's all about finding that line about context, intention,
Yeah.
all that, right?
And cancel culture is so interesting to me. It's always existed. Cancel culture always existed, but it exists way more now because of social media. Because everyone has a voice. Everyone feels like they're an activist for something. I'm like, dog, what are you what are you really an activist for? Like, as an older person, I'm like, oh yeah, I stood and I marched. Really? That's what? Like, okay, that's great that you did that. Are you an activist now? Like, are you really knowledgeable? Like, you know, like. Kind of
Yeah.
like you question them and you're just kind of like again, shout out to everyone that like listens to this and wants to hate on me after this, like like whatever. But like I was like I don't question. I question in a way like, are you really an activist now to like understand that your words hold power, and when you stand for something, you better stand for it. Like shout out to Kyrie Irving. Even though I don't agree with him, he's standing for what he believes in, and he's not playing in the NBA.
That's-
Like shout out to Kyrie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's borderline weird, and again, like I don't want to go into that. Like I don't agree with what he's saying, but shout out, and I respect him in the sense that at least he's standing up for it and he's believing it,
Yeah.
and he's becoming quote unquote an activist for whatever
Yeah.
he wants to believe in. But nowadays in social media, like every other day, I'm finding a post that what I need to care about.
Right.
It's like, dog, what? Like, I gotta care about my wallet sometimes. You know, I gotta care about my puppy. Like, do I put a puppy stand for all puppies in life? Like, come on, man. Like, you know, everyone wants to complain or say something, but anyways, I don't want to go on to my old man rant. But I won't. I kind of am. I'm like the old man, like get off my lawn type of thing. It's just
No, but like everything we're touching on right now, it's like super relevant, super
Yeah.
important, and
Yeah, man.
something we're all experiencing together,
all
right? Which is
experience,
it's a weird point in time where like there's a lot of progress, there's a lot of change, and I think being kind of on the forefront of that and experiencing that firsthand is like obviously super special experience for us as like millennials and you know like the up and coming generation and whatnot.
Yeah.
and Gen Zs and like
Gen
you know,
Zs and
Those
man,
Gen Zs, yo.
and Gen Z. Oh man, I'm making an ad for Gen Z. I understand that, like man, but just even things like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a different story. Again, that's another episode that you guys.
it's a different episode. Yeah.
Man, pop off on that. Yeah, sorry guys. I don't even know if this is about Kyopo anymore.
No, honestly, like everything we
it's
talked, everything talked about is about being Kyopo, right? Which is the brand.
I
So
guess
Yeah,
so.
it's all
Yeah,
it's all
don't
connected.
worry about
It's
it.
true. It's
Yeah.
true. It's true.
Yeah, that's about it from me.
Same.
You guys have anything else?
That's, no,
I just have a
that's about
couple last rapid fire questions. But if there's anything else before that,
I have one more actually. Do you have any questions for us?
yeah.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, I think for me, it's like more than questions. Like I would love to know. yeah, I guess like what's your long-term goal with this? Like what do you guys want to see with Young and Finch podcast, and how can I operate in a way to support you guys in that, right? I feel like that's kind of a question. Maybe it can be on the podcast or we can take it offline. But yeah, man, like what's your long-term goals with Young and Finch, and what ways do you need the people to help you? Because I said before, like, you know, we don't support one another in this kind of way and do it, but like, what are some, like, and sometimes we just gotta ask for it, right? So like for me, like to let you guys, like, what do you guys need, and what do you guys want, and what do you guys need, and how can I help you?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, personally, I came into this without having an end goal. Without having an end goal. I'm doing it just to try something new and try something new with my friends and see where it goes. And I think, I don't know, personally, if I have an end goal, it's very quantitatable. So if I don't reach it, I think I'll feel like shit. So it's like kind of like not a sprint, but a marathon. Just keep doing, grinding, do what you believe in. Because I do believe in this, like the main value proposition of reaching out to Kyopos, right? Or not intentional, but reaching out to Kyopos, like people like us. So, and the best way to support is honestly like to listen. Just like listen while you're driving. Like we don't expect. I don't know about Josh and Brian, but for me, I don't expect a lot from our listeners. I just want them to like maybe get something out of what. First of all, I want them to listen. Just that's it. No more, no less. And second, if they got something out of it, like a laugh, that's enough for me. Honestly, like a lesson. Like you said, like people are DMing us with their personal shit. That's, I think, really big. But even like the little things, like I have some friends that come up to me and they're like, yo, we love your podcast, especially this episode. And I'd be like, oh shit, yeah. Like that's like the little things that make me keep going, at least. Maybe Josh and Brian could fill in.
Yeah, I mean, like the reason why, like personally, I started the podcast was to connect with people, that have similar backgrounds like us, that immigrated from Korea or from a different country. And I think just having different guests and different perspectives, I like especially for this podcast, I think I learned a lot from you, Sam, man, and your experience of growing up here. Yeah. And everyone has different like thresholds, right? Like some people are more Korean or some people are more like Westernized, but at the end of the day, like we're all here for the same goal, same reason. So I guess just long-term goal is just kind of keep what we're doing, reach out to more people that are in this similar boat. And what you said about like branching out into like not necessarily Koreans, but other ethnicities that are also immigrated to a different country, I think that's also a really interesting idea. But just supporting us, I guess, just having more exposure out there and just getting our name out there, I think would be our maybe not long-term goal, but short-term goal for sure. But
dope.
Yeah.
Dope.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think it's interesting because Kyopo is just the word for Korean Western or Korean foreigner. But yeah, like you said, like there is no limit. The whole thing with us, I think, is we're a podcast made by Korean Canadians, but we're not necessarily a podcast made for Korean Canadians, which I think was a kind of a thing that we decided early on. Like even our last guest was my friend Tiffany, who's actually, her background is Chinese, and so like we don't want to limit ourselves, I think, with only Koreans. But at the same time, like you said, I think it's so important to create that community for Korean Canadians specifically, right? So it's kind of like a bit of both, where we really want to focus on like, highlighting, what Korean Canadians are doing, like you and our previous guests, like Victor and Josh, like what creatives and professionals and things that are coming out of the city and our country that we can highlight and kind of build that connection stronger. Like, of course, what helps is, sharing the podcast. But I guess that's kind of, we're all on the same page, I think, with the end goal, just letting it grow, and hopefully it'll define itself coming forward.
Just to add, I try not to think of like I have no expectations for a lot of things because I purposely try not to have it, to not disappoint myself. So
so Asian. No,
but it's true though.
Yeah, I know, but it's such a, you're so Korean in that area. Anyways, go on.
Yeah, so like that's why I try to not like we have a main goal of having a community, building that up. But in terms of like long-term like finances, long-term like brand building, I think it will. I don't know. I believe that if our content's good and you invest a lot about the product that the product that we're building, everything else will come through, and then we'll kind of iteratively build up small goals as things come in.
Yeah.
Kind of like being more reactive being more reactive than proactive, I guess you could say.
And proactive in it, yeah. You know what? I will. This is what I'll say to that, and my hesitation in that is that sometimes when you're reactive, that's just a very Asian thing in us. But in order to be groundbreaking, in order to grow, you need to be proactive.
I agree,
definitely.
And so, and one thing I would encourage you guys to be is proactive.
Right.
Don't be afraid to be like, you meet someone, and they tell like, what do you do? Hey, and we also run this podcast. Be proactive in sharing it. Be proactive in everything that you need to be doing with it, because when you're being a trailblazer in a sense, not saying that you're the first 3 Asian guys to ever make a podcast. No. There's ton of guys. But you need to be proactive in the sense of, especially when it comes to content, especially when it comes to growing. I think reactive thing is a very Asian mindset to have, like, oh, we'll just do it and we'll come in and whatever. Right. But I do think there needs to be a certain sense of proactive. And I would encourage you guys to like think about that, brainstorm it, and like see different ways that you guys can proactively like get that goal and be motivated and be like, we got to proactively do this. And so, because like, and I really believe in you guys. I really do. I genuinely believe in you guys that you guys are able to do this. So if you guys are able to do it, then proactively do it. Proactively. And the only thing you have to lose is time.
For sure. For sure. Like I agree with you. We try to be proactive in the content wise, and I think we could be more proactive in the other areas as well. Like, like you said, like talking to other people about podcasts, not even like people that you might not want to bring it up to, right? So,
and you might be scared, whatever. I was like, run a podcast on the side. Dope. I used to be like, my friends would be like, oh, this guy runs Kyopo. I'm like, oh no, I'd be so shy about it. I'm like, oh no, you probably don't like it.
It goes back to the judgmental thing. It goes back to the, I don't know, for me at least, it goes back to the judgmental thing. So, because like if I say something that I think is somewhat negative, like I know doing podcasts is not negative, right? But let's say, for example, I bring up podcasts and I think it's negative. I think it's negative. I won't bring it up because.
And you know what's so funny? If you had a certain amount of followers, you would bring it up easily.
That's the
quantifiable thing too. Like,
we're waiting for that 1K mark.
You're waiting for that 1K mark or the 2K mark, but like, you know what I'm saying? You can't get there unless you just start doing it.
No, it's true.
And so like, honestly, like. It's crazy to me because before, like, you're the only, oh no, it's okay, and then I'd be like, oh, just send me a DM and I'll hook you up with this, or like whatever, like, I'd like very be like thing about it, but now I've like learned to just be like, I run it. It's going okay. It's not going as good as you think it is, but it's going okay. Right. Like, and I'm like, and I'm very more confident in it, with what I'm doing. But again, this side note, I don't know if you guys want to keep it in the podcast or not, but like, side note to you guys is honestly proactively do some things and don't be shy about it. Don't be shy about it, because the more you're shy about it, and I'm sure you guys talked about this in your dating podcast or something like that, like, when you guys talk about girls, what girls like and that stuff, girls love confidence. Girls love confidence. So if you're able to say something different that other people aren't doing, and you're able to confidently say that you're running a weekly podcast, that's attractive. Doesn't matter how many followers you have, that's attractive. So like, attract people with that kind of mindset. You know?
For sure,
yeah, no, for sure.
Anyways, that's it. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to.
You set a fire inside of me, bro.
Get that going for you guys. Rapid fire or something.
Yeah.
We typically like to do this with some of our guests so that our audience, as well as your audience, can get to know a little bit more about you on, I guess, more of like a personal, just chill level. So I'll just fire through, and just first thing that comes to your mind, boom, boom, boom.
Oh man, I suck at this, but okay.
What's one Korean dish that you think is low-key that more people should know about and try?
Ooh, good question.
Oh,
nice. Good question.
Like, I'm not talking bibimbap. I'm not talking.
You know what's crazy about that is I love food, so like I can do a whole podcast on.
That's what I'm saying. These guys don't want to do it, but I'm saying we should do it.
My fat ass would love this. What's one low-key dish that not like? I guess we're speaking to like non-Koreans.
Yeah, just like the general public.
That's tough.
That's tough.
That's tough.
Yeah. So many good.
Shoot.
I got one. But it's...
What?
I was going to say, balak tteokbokki.
Oh, mala tteokbokki.
Oh, anything 말라.
Yeah.
Yo, you're so Korean, Andrew.
But that's like trendy though. Mala,
no,
everything
ba-
is like huge in Korea.
Outside of Korea, it's not though.
But like mala is
Yeah.
just big in like Asian food, I think.
I know, but you said general
Okay.
public, right? I don't think a lot of people.
Josh, I'll say this. You're asking me to do this rapid fire, but this food one was not a good rapid fire one.
Just
because, like,
one. Just one. It doesn't have to be all of them.
Because you know why? I honestly still think this, and it's not like underrated. Like it's underrated to me because I don't think there's anything better than a kimchi bokkeumbap. Like I think kimchi fried rice is the best with a fried egg. You got some like kogi, some spam, and some kimchi on that. There's
yeah.
nothing better than fermented kimchi like that to get like kimchi bokkeumbap is ultimate. If you don't like kimchi bokkeumbap, I don't know who you are. Like kimchi
Facts.
bokkeumbap is ultimate, and that's why when you say like I want more people to understand it, I need kimchi bokkeumbap to be on the same level as Korean barbecue. I need
Yeah.
kimchi bokkeumbap to be on the same level.
Yeah.
Thing. You know what's overrated? Cheese on things.
Yeah.
That's
All
what
this whole
yo,
thing.
we said that. We said that.
Completely overrated. Oh yeah, cheese. Add cheese. F that.
Yeah.
I don't want this cheese. I don't want to make. Give me that kimchi bokkeumbap with old samgyeopsal, with kimchi, some pakin, like anything like that.
Yeah,
Like
some
trust
kim.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like that's. I need more people to understand
Yeah.
that kimchi bokkeumbap is greater than a lot. I think
Yeah.
kimchi bokkeumbap might be better than Korean barbecue.
Oh,
like
that's
in
tough.
everything.
A lot of
In
hot takes
everything.
this episode.
In
A lot of hot
everything.
takes.
In everything.
I was gonna.
I just love kimchi fried rice.
Kimchi bokkeumbap's up there.
I was gonna ask you kimchi bokkeumbap with cheese.
Nah, I don't. You know what? Like, I'll do it sometimes, but like, you know, and a lot of Asians are lactose, so I don't know why we all eating a bunch of cheese.
Dude,
and
I don't
stuff
get
like
it.
that.
I don't get it.
But I think kimchi bokkeumbap. But now here's the thing: kimchi bokkeumbap with Korean barbecue is the best. After the
yes.
barbecue, and then you cook the kimchi.
Oh,
bokkeumbap.
yeah, yeah,
In the
yeah.
in
Yeah,
the fat.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
say
yeah.
less.
Now,
Oh,
that's,
we know.
that's-
with the egg around.
Yeah. You know what? Takdoritang.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Takdoritang
That's
is
up
an
there.
underrated dish too that you don't see
Yeah.
a lot, but
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know about. But takdoritang is
Yeah,
like
I agree.
braised chicken, super good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was not
Sounds
rapid.
so-
I'm sorry, my answer was not rapid.
It's all
at
good.
Brian, you got one?
For me, I have to go with kongbiji.
Oh.
공비지.
Oh,
That's some 아저씨 입맛.
That's
You
some
know what I'm saying?
ajushi.
That's-
Yeah.
yo,
I love
that's
it though.
bomb,
I like
man.
it.
Um,
Yeah.
And it's like a little bit spicy.
Shout out to Mannason. Mannason and we're close to Young and Comer. They around Young and Empress around here.
Yeah.
Mannason, the Korean restaurant, they have good kongbiji.
kongbiji, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they got good kongbiji. Yeah.
Keep
I'll
that in
remember
mind.
Next
Yeah.
Young and Finch meetup, we might have to go get some
Hey.
공비지.
Yeah.
I'll be down.
Yeah, it's
Let's
good.
do it.
It's good. Yeah, come back to North York where your Young and Finch name.
Yeah. No. We'll
Change your name to Chris J. Change your name to like whatever you guys are, wherever you
Shit,
guys
Young
are.
and
Young and
Dundas.
Dundas.
You're Young and Dundas?
No, the
No,
my
no.
God.
the downtown
I was gonna
the
say.
downtown Koreatown is like Young and Bloor now, like Young and Mosley, that area.
Yeah, Young and
Yeah,
Bloor.
that's true.
Like Christie.
was-
No, not.
Oh, with the Pocha.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Yeah.
mean? Oh, yeah.
Have you guys gone to Pocha?
Bro, that's-
Pocha's pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I was
Yeah.
there. I was there on
Bro, that's my
Thursday.
yeah.
Next question. What's a Toronto Koreatown establishment?
That people
Bar, restaurant, something that's like a classic. It's like been
Like, okay,
there.
okay, hold up. For me, classic is everyone knows YK.
YK.
YK Notabang,
Yeah.
YK Pisabang. That's like that was the
Classic.
original when I was younger. That's a classic. That's a
sure.
classic. For me now, as an ajashi, 조금 참외 보쌈. I love 참외 보쌈.
자매? Yo.
On Spring
Yeah.
Garden, I used to live there. I used to live there. Like, go in there, and I have a loud voice, and 사장님's cooking in the back, and she goes, "Oh, Sam came." You know, 돈가스 service comes out, some popcorn comes out, like you know, like man, 참외 보쌈 is the place for me
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But now that was changing. It changed.
Wait, where's it now? I thought it was always chabibosom.
No, 낭만 is
참외's
popping
kinda like
off.
old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
참외's getting old right now. Although I love it.
자매 is kind of like what Iwa is now. Kind of like classic Korean bar.
Yeah.
No,
and
I'm
then-
only asking this because the last time I went to Chame, it was not that bumping on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm.
Yeah.
It's
lot.
changed.
Yeah.
It's dead now.
Yeah.
It's dead now.
kinda
I still
sad.
love it. I still love it as an
Yeah.
ajashi.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. But like 낭만 is a little bit more popping
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Mikaku.
Yeah.
And then if you go up to Anjanjire
Yeah.
around there, like it's a little bit more busy towards Young and Steels moving up.
It's going up north.
That's-
yeah,
that's
it's
Young and
interesting.
Comer
Yeah.
going up north.
Wow.
But I'm Chame for life now. Like
Hey.
I'm the ajashi that can go to Chame, just have a soju by myself, and then like go
Yeah.
home. But just not on a weekend.
All right,
night.
bet. Next time we'll go to
yeah.
Chame.
It's like
Yeah,
it's
let's
like
do
yeah,
it.
it's like I'm by myself just having a soldier. It's like well, not on a weekend. I still got an image, some sort of image to maintain or something.
It's that Korean.
Yeah,
it's that Korean.
thing. And I run into everyone I know there, so it's all good.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, Chame Bosam is the answer.
All right, what about you guys?
Oh man.
I was gonna
Rapid.
say Chilo because I used to go there a lot when I was in high school. I'm
yeah.
a more of Chilo, not
Karaoke.
YK. Yeah.
YK is an establishment for me
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, like,
I was gonna say
but Chilo,
yeah, you know that cafe upstairs from Chilo?
Soban Cafe.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Soban.
Oh, yeah.
Before the owner changed, but
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, Soban. Princess Cafe.
Oh shit. All right. All right.
that's my main spot, bro.
All right, I would have to go with Herong Banjam.
Okay.
해령 반점?
Yeah.
Wow.
Classic. I used to go there all the time.
한정식?
High school,
Yeah.
university.
Wow.
짜장면 짬뽕?
Wow.
There's a lot of jjajangmyeon places uptown now though. There's like
Oh,
Bukkyongjang and
Hey,
yeah.
can I just say this? Young and Steele's Galleria, the Chinese food in there, the Jungkook in there is the best one
Oh,
in
it's
Toronto.
good?
Best
Really?
one in Toronto.
Really?
Get the
I gotta
get the
try that.
mapu get the mapu tubu bop, get the mapu tubu next time you go there, and then get the
Really?
combo jjajangmyeon tangsu combo. I'm telling you right now, it is the best one in Toronto right now.
Have you tried 북경성?
Yeah, Pukyongsong garbage compared to this.
What?
Really?
Yo.
I won't call it garbage. Do you know the owner?
No,
Do you
we don't.
know the
I don't
owner?
know.
So
I don't
don't- Okay,
No,
cool,
no,
cool,
no,
cool,
no,
cool.
no,
All right,
no.
cool. Yeah, then I think Galleria is far and
Interesting.
above.
Oh,
The
shit.
old.
Gotta try that.
Anyways, sorry.
Noted.
Don't,
No,
don't
love
be
it,
sorry.
love it. Last question: if you could only listen to one artist for the rest of your
easy.
life, who would it
Easy.
be? I think you know we've already answered this before, but we'd love to know your answer.
Man, so here's the thing. You know something? I don't listen to music anymore. I listen to podcasts. So like, I work in content. So
Yeah.
I work in sports content, right? Like, would I rather listen to music or would I listen
Yeah.
to thing? But one artist. You know what? Since it's a Korean podcast, I'll say this: God.
Okay.
Like, you know, like I
Classic.
would go to God. Like at their like some of the early albums, I can always listen to and just have a
Right.
good time because they have a
Yeah.
mix of fun, mix of funk, and like the slow
Yeah.
ballads. Like,
Yeah.
they have a mix of everything that I can
Sure,
run with.
sure.
This is where the age comes out.
Hey,
Wow.
man, hey, you know what's so funny?
Low blow.
Hey, you say that. I'm a
Kidding,
little
Sam.
too old for
I was
God
joking,
too,
man.
man. I'm like HOT days. So like,
Yeah. I mean, to us, it was like Big
But-
Bang and like.
Yeah,
yeah, to you guys are probably Big Bang and everything like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would say God. Shout out to God.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Shout out to Jody.
What about you guys? Wait, what's your guys' answer?
I think for Brian and I, it's just Drake.
We said
Yeah.
Drake.
Yeah, me
Easy.
too. But if we're going
Easy.
Korean, I'd be interested to know one Korean artist. If you could only choose one, I would choose SG Wannabe.
Oh,
Easy.
That's good. That's a good one.
See, Josh, I just know what you're like at a Notabang. I know what you're like at a K. When you say SG1, I know what you're
Josh
like.
is that guy.
Expect the unexpected, my guy.
If it's Korean, like the thing with me is I don't fuck with Korean hip hop, so I can't do anyone like hip hop related.
Yeah.
So I have to choose someone that's like ballad,
Yeah.
right? So for me, it would have to be either vibe, like vibe, or Foreman,
yeah.
Oh,
or Park Hyo-shin.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
oh yeah.
One of those three.
Wow.
Ballad Boys.
Ballad
Brian, what about you?
boy.
I would say, well, I gotta go with hip hop, man. I gotta go with Lee Sang.
Okay, yeah, that's.
Oh,
I respect that.
shit.
Yeah.
I like Lee Sung.
yeah.
Okay.
I think we have a nice little collection going on
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
You know, I would say like I used to be like that, Andrew, where I don't mess with Korean hip hop, but I think it's getting better.
Like I don't know. For me personally, when I see these kids like acting hard, and they're not from the hood, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of cringy.
Yeah.
Like they're not from where they
Yeah.
say they're from, so it's
Yeah.
like.
My biggest pet peeve was when I heard Taeyang speak Korean. I'm like, why are you speaking like that, dog? Like, you're not a Kyopo, like, came from the hood. Like, sometimes, like, I was like, yo, Taeyang, man. Like,
Yeah.
hold on. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I feel
Yeah.
you on that.
Like these kids probably studied.
Like, they're not from
Oh,
the hood,
sorry.
yeah.
These kids probably like studied 12 hours per day in like high school, and then they're like, "Yo, I'm
Yeah.
about like killing people about with my gun." I'm like, dog, come on. Just say you study 17 hours. That's tougher than what you're trying to act tough, you know?
But if we're talking Korean hip hop, like Lee Sang is a good example. But like Dynamic Duo, Epic
Yeah.
High, like
Yeah.
those are like
Oh,
classic
yeah.
Korean hip hop
Classic.
that can't miss.
Classic Korean hip hop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's Drunken Tiger. I'll age myself. I'll say Drunken
Yeah.
Tiger. Like the first
Oh,
album,
DK
Tiger
sick.
JK,
No, yeah,
DJ DJ
Yeah.
Shine.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like those like old school like that
Yeah.
album. Do you know hip hop? Like
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like still to
Yeah.
this day, it's like.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh dang! You're like, oh shoot, man. Okay, Tiger JK. But yeah,
Yeah.
Tiger.
I agree with Josh. I like.
Yeah, that's a good
I
one.
fuck with old hip hop, old Korean hip hop, but the new ones, nah, not so much.
Yeah. that concludes the rapid fire questions. Not so rapid.
Not so rapid. Not so rapid.
But it was good, yeah.
All right, guys. We want to thank Kyopo, aka Sam, for joining us on this podcast. It was great having you. It was very fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
For sure. Yeah, and hope our listeners got a laugh out of this and some lessons. And yeah.
Yeah, and if you guys want to support Sam's clothing business, we'll link his Instagram page down in the description below. I highly recommend you guys check it out. He's got a lot of cool designs and a lot of cool stuff on the page. And if you guys resonated with anything that we said in this podcast, make sure to let us know in our DMs, and make sure to follow us on our Instagram page at The Young and Finch.
And share it. And share it.
Everybody
share it, man. Listen to it. Support it, man. Share it.
Yes, please.
And share it. If you like this episode, don't forget to follow us on Spotify, and you can find our podcast episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, you already know. Give us a rating in the Apple iTunes store if you like what you're listening to. And yeah.
Yes, sir. And we'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.
Later.
See you guys. Peace.
Peace.
There's a new Netflix show that people are complaining about too. Did you guys hear about that? The movie, the Christmas movie with Jimmy O Yang.
I've heard of it, but I didn't see it.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's like this
Of
geeky, like, again, typical Asian character, man
course.
character.
Yeah.
Catfishing,
Yeah.
and then like and then all of a sudden they meet, and then they end up. Spoiler alert, whatever. Like, everyone knows they're gonna end up falling in love. Like, everything, it's one of those like cheesy movies. But then like people are complaining like, oh my gosh, like, why can't it have been a good like a handsome Asian person? But I was like, that's not the concept of the movie. Then it just doesn't work, right? Like,
Yeah.